Well, okay. It's good to see you guys again. It's time for tool number 7. Wow, seven's a good number. It must be a good tool. And to be honest with you, when I was first started thinking of creating this series and how in the world I would present them in the proper order, I was thinking that this tool should be number 1. Most carpenters, if you get a business card off of them with an emblem, it's got this tool on it. It's that important of a tool. It's an extremely important one. Matter of fact, there was one time when I got a carpenter's helper position, and I only brought with me 2 tools: a flimsy 10-foot tape measure, which if you watched our last episode, you realize that a 10, or previous one, episode 5, you realize that a 10-foot one is just an embarrassment. You shouldn't even be presented with it. And the other tool I brought with me that day was my hammer. And so I'm on my second hammer that I've had since I started my career in building. So again, that's a good indication of how important it is to pick out just the right hammer, and what it'll serve you and how it'll serve you. And again, I'm going to tell you my opinion on tools, and you can take it or leave it. But the important thing I'm asking you is to look at the options and think them through and pick out exactly what's the best hammer for you. I think my first one I bought at Sears. It was a Craftsman, and I was going to use it till I wore it out. And actually, what happened is I ended up losing it somehow or another. It just sort of disappeared out of my life. So I had to buy another one. And when it came time, I bought a Stanley. And I don't know why. I mean, it's not particularly because of the brand. But I just liked the way it looked and the way it felt. And there are aspects to the hammer that I'd like to point out to you, that things to look for in a hammer. So anyway, here's my hammer, and isn't it pretty? It's a little bit worn out, it's a little bit scuzzy, but actually that's what you want in a hammer eventually. So the first thing you'll notice is that it's a fiberglass hammer, and a lot of people are surprised. They think that I should have a wood hammer. But actually, a wood hammer is, first of all, it's not comfortable to hold. It's not soft and contoured enough, and also that a wood hammer does not hold up well in pulling nails. That eventually you end up cracking that wood, and so they just don't last. They look good, and they're traditional, but they don't last. So fiberglass handle is the first thing. It to feel comfortable in your hand is very important. This next thing is let's see, the weight of it, and this is a 16-ounce hammer, so 1 pound. They make them much higher than this and everything else, and the real men out there in the world, the ones that frame houses for a living, will use a heavier gauge one, particularly for framing, so that they can drive those nails in quicker. But to me, it wears me out. I don't need a hammer that heavy. This does the job just fine for me. The next thing is that you'll notice the head here is smooth, and they make waffle-headed ones up here, where it looks kind of like a waffle. It's a very rough texture, and it's supposed to grip that nail when you strike it and drive it on in. Works fine for framing, but you'd never want to use it for finished nails. I do both framing and finishing, so I'd choose the smooth one. Also, it never fails that eventually you're going to hit your finger or thumb with a hammer. It's not a pleasant experience, and I would rather have a big bruise into my thumb than a waffle imprint that did all kinds of damage. And then the final feature I'd like to point out to you is the well, maybe the second to the final is the curved profile of the claw end here. This is perfection, not only as far as attractiveness in a hammer goes, but also it's great at pulling nails and everything else. You have a leverage to roll when you're pulling the nail out and everything else. Don't get a straight one. I wouldn't recommend it. And then the final thing is just the look. And whether or not it's a car, or it's an airplane, or it's a tool, if it looks classic, it's a good design. If it looks functional, looks like it works, it's great. Nowadays they're trying to experiment to make fancier and more odd looking hammers. They will shorten this length here and make a little snub nose hammer. They're doing all kinds of ergonomics with it and everything else. And in my opinion, they're just making a hammer harder to use. So you can't beat the Classic. You can get it for 10 or 12 bucks. And I went to Lowe's, and they don't make this particular one. Actually, they made a Cobalt one, a store brand one, guaranteed forever, for is blue and cheap store brand. But actually, it felt really nice. It felt really well balanced. And if I was looking for one and I was in Lowe's, that might be the one I'd be going for. So okay, that's it. I hope that was helpful to you. And it's exciting. Hammer is a really cool thing. Now you can measure boards, you can cut boards, and we can drive nails in them too. So we're getting to the point where we can actually start doing some work with all these tools. So anyway, look forward to seeing you next week for the next tool. That would be tool number 8. So we'll see you then. Thanks.